Hey guys, welcome back to more Homeowner Association stories. In this r/justno HOA video, a Karen blocked the road to my house with a semi-truck and claims the road is now property of the HOA and she has a right to block me from entering my property. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story starts like this. So I live in a rural area and to get to my property I go down a road that is basically a glorified long driveway. It is considered a road though, meaning there's public access to it and it is owned and maintained by the local government. Nobody else uses the road unless coming to my house because there really just isn't a use for it to anybody else. The big problem is that at some point within the road leading onto my property, there's some land that just is not owned by anybody. My family has been using it for decades though, solely as just a connection between the road and my property. We don't build on it or anything because it's not really ours. What I learned during this whole situation was that because we were using it for so long with nobody else claiming the land, we established a prescriptive easement on the property. It did not give us any kind of ownership of the land, but basically meant that we had permission to use it for a specific reason. In this case, that being driving through it to our property. And well, we have an HOA out here and it was a pretty boring and nice one, well, until Karen came along as the new president. Just to make things clear, my family was here long before the HOA and never signed into joining it, so we are not members at all. I think when Karen took over, she was angry that I was not part of it and thought that she could get her way. She wanted me to join, but I refused that and that seemed to just rile some hate in her soul. It turned out that the land being ignored for all this time was technically HOA property they just never used. And Karen saw that as a golden opportunity to force me to join. She tried to tell me that I could not use the road anymore since it apparently crossed HOA property and unless I was a member, I did not have the right to use it. The entire thing sounded really fishy and off to me, so I just told her again that I was not joining and I was not stopping using the road that led to my property. She had some amount of nerve because in response to me saying no, she went out of her way to hire a semi-truck. Not to cause any damage or anything, but just to block the road in the spot that is technically HOA property. I could not get back to my house that way and was extremely angry about the entire thing. She was waiting there too, telling me that I could join and pay dues and she would be happy to let me through. Otherwise though, it was HOA property and then she had the right to block off that area of the road if she wanted to. If it wasn't for a neighbor letting me drive through his property, I would have been totally stuck. That's around the time I did some research and found out that I had an easement, so actually I could use the road. I took all of this to Karen and told her that I wanted the truck moved because I had a legal right to use this road. Well, that did not work as it just made Karen laugh and claim that I was too much of a dumb hick to know anything about the laws and what I had the right to. She started speaking to me like I was a moron or something really slowly, telling me what part of the road was public use, what part was on my property, and what part was HOA property. She also told me that if I didn't just stop with all the defiance and join, things would only get worse, telling me that she was going to take me to court and force me to pay for the decades of using the road without HOA permission or paying any kind of fee. She told me that the court would make me pay her thousands of dollars or, well, I could join and she would forget about the whole thing. She did not know who she was messing with and that I was the one getting a lawyer and taking her to court instead. So I got a real estate lawyer mainly because I wanted to make sure I was right about this easement thing, which I was. And since it was already established that Karen could not take the land now and make new rules against it. As long as I was not trying to claim ownership or build on the land, I had the right to use it to get onto my property. We then sent a cease and desist letter to the HOA, who was basically just Karen and some people that she had control over. It was demanding that the truck be moved because it was disrupting my easement. He also wrote that failure to do so would result in further legal action against them. They were not the only person we contacted either, as the truck company she was renting from should be aware of their role in this, letting them know that one of their trucks was being used to illegally create a blockade and their company would be on the line too if things went to court. While the HOA was ignoring the letter we sent them, the truck company was not trying to get sued. They had their own truck towed away after they found that they couldn't even get it to run after whatever Karen did. She must have really messed it up. She was fighting them for taking the truck away, but ended up losing and was told that the towing cost and the damage to the truck would be billed to her. Also, since the HOA was not complying with my right for an easement, I was filing a lawsuit against them. I was looking for two things to be accomplished from this. The first was that I wanted to be compensated for the problems I had during the blockade. Basically, I had to miss work for some days when I was too busy trying to fight them, and I also wanted them to pay for my legal costs and emotional distress or the entire situation. It's a very upsetting thing. The second thing was that I wanted was for Karen to be forced to step down from the HOA due to harassing me and attempting to extort me in a way by joining. The first part was fairly easy, as Karen refused to settle and insisted that the HOA go to court and fight the entire thing. Well, that was how it started, anything until I think the rest of the HOA realized that she was crazy and they were just gonna lose. The rest of the HOA outvoted her in order to make a settlement with me. They were giving me everything I wanted, and because of how she acted during the whole process, she was also giving me the other thing I wanted. She was forced to step down from her position only after being in it for a few months. The HOA was now financially struggling, and it was all due to her wanting to abuse power the moment that she got it. She could have done anything she wanted with that land if she just left the road alone. Instead though, I have now access to the road again, and I think the HOA, due to the lack of money or maybe fear, has still yet to do anything there anymore. Karen still lives in the area, but I don't hear much from or about her anymore. There was a lot of talk when she first was forced to step down, and the rumors about why spread like crazy. Rumors that I was not involved in making, but I was not gonna stop them either. I wanted her to feel the sting of being hated after what she did. It makes me wonder though if that plot will ever get used, or if the HOA will just try and sell it because of the bad experience Karen caused everyone. And the next one is a fantastic petty revenge story that is titled "You Are Too Old for the Children's Section." And by the way, if you've enjoyed the HOA stories so far, please don't forget to like the video, because that helps me tremendously. So, many years ago, when I was 19 years old, I was at my local Borders bookstore searching for a children's book or two for my little cousin's birthday. He was turning 5 and really enjoyed reading whatever kids' books he could at his young age, so I thought I would support the habit. So I enter the store and head straight to the kids section and look around, picking up some books that look like they would interest my little cousin, and even laughing at some of the funny things I saw on the covers / first pages I flipped through. Kids' books are hilarious, okay? As I'm minding my own business, I get a very firm poke on the back of my shoulder from a very disgruntled employee. This employee starts to tell me that I must leave the kids section immediately because it is only for kids 12 and under, and how inappropriate I was being, and also how creepy I was being for looking at children's books. I let her go on and on until I had enough and decided it was time for some very petty revenge. I let her finish one last sentence and said, "I totally understand. I will make sure to leave the kids section, as no adults are allowed to be here." I literally took about 10 steps to my left, which put me outside of the clearly carpeted boundaries of the kids section. I stood there as the employee kept looking at me, and as soon as I saw a mom and dad walk into the kids section with their 2 kids, I regretfully informed them that their kids could stay and look around the section, but the parents would have to leave as they were over the age of 12. They of course were questioning my authority to tell them to leave the kids section, rightfully so, and as luck would have it, the employee from before came charging over, apologizing to them for my remarks, and explained that the kids section is not only for individuals under the age of 12. Well, as soon as I heard those words leave her mouth, I of course questioned her and asked why she would have told me the opposite just a few minutes ago and had me leave the kids section. At this point, the couple just demanded a manager, again rightfully so, and the manager came over and asked for everyone's side of things. When I told him that I was there to buy children's books for my cousin, he asked why there was a problem in the first place. I replied, "Well, I'm not sure. Ask your employee. She's the one who approached me for looking at books. I was just informing other customers of this store policy so they didn't get reprimanded like me." The manager immediately turned red and walked over to his employee. I could not hear everything he said, but I could hear him say, "We will talk about this later. This is the second time now." So I can only imagine what trouble she got in. After he finished telling his employee that they would speak later, he came back over to me and the couple. I started this part of the conversation off by apologizing to the couple for making them and their kids my case in point, to which they said that they understand now that they see what happened. The manager apologized to them as well and then to me for his employees' behavior and explained that there's no such rule or policy and that I was free to go into the kids section, get whatever books I want and then check out up front. He offered to bring any children's books I knew I would purchase to the front register and hold them for me so that he didn't waste any more of my time and so that I could do one last quick visual sweep of what kids' books were on the shelves. I thanked him profusely and told him not to worry about my time because I've got plenty. I then sat down on one of the kids' chairs in the kids section, grabbed a book off the shelf behind me and sat down staring straight at the employee until they walked away. Anyways, Borders is closed now. And the next story is titled, Punishing me for underperforming for 1 day in 2 years? No problem. And this one is from r/malicious compliance. And by the way, let me know in the comments which one do you prefer, malicious compliance or petty revenge. I gotta say, this is a really close choice for me. But anyway, I work at a company where I handle mid to high level complaints to managers, PR and legal. My daily requirement is 40 cases handled per day, and there are some of my team colleagues that struggle with this, but I don't, and I don't feel lazy to stop at 40, so I have handled 50 to 55 basically every day for the past 2 years. There's no bonus or even recognition for this, I just did it because I felt a friendly obligation to the company. Complaints can be a 5-minute resolution or a 2-hour Zoom call with our New York lawyers. It's a gamble, really. Now onto the event. Recently, I had a day where I felt a bit sick and at the same time had bad luck of getting only very hard cases that require more time. So I had 39 cases, one under the requirement. I thought nothing of it as my weekly average was way off the charts, 50 plus as usual, and the very next day I felt better and went back to my usual high numbers. Come Monday, I had an emergency one-on-one with my manager where I was informed that I had to attend a 3-day workshop/seminar on how to best meet my requirements because I supposedly underperformed last week. My jaw dropped and I asked why they don't count the weekly, monthly, yearly numbers, to which I was told that the daily requirement is 40 and this is standard practice, nothing we can do. Basically, it was a workshop for underperformers who had 20 to 30 out of 40 cases daily. It was nothing hard, but I did need to drive there for 3 days after work and listen to HR guys giving bad advice as they never actually handled the cases in real life, and I had to talk about what I will do to improve my numbers and reach the magical 40 as they nonsense HR talk calls it. This made me lose hours and hours of my free time and I was livid. After it was over, I had a long think and I decided that I will do exactly that. I will reach the 40 and that is it. The aftermath: for the past few months I got into work, I handle 40 cases, my daily requirement, and then I do nothing for the rest of my shift. I've had multiple one-on-ones with my manager during this time and I'm constantly asked, is something wrong? To which I naively reply, no, am I in trouble? Am I underperforming? And then of course they say that I'm 100% within daily requirements and that way I shut the conversation down. This is real life, so I cannot really say a clever comeback or something like that, but I do keep playing the fool that has no idea what is wrong now, but I do find satisfaction in knowing that they got used to my overachieving and are now suffering for the lack of it. Before Easter, they put up an internal ad for promoting another 2 managers, so my guess is how that is the number of people they will now need to pay extra just because they lost me as an overachiever and they lost me for no reason other than their own stupidity. Thank you all, I hope I did not bore you. And the next one is an amazing petty revenge story that is titled, My Mother-in-Law's Petty Revenge Against Her Cheating Lying Son. So I posted about my cheating husband in another sub back in September or October. I was not in a good headspace then, but I have since healed and looking forward to my new life. Just to be clear, my in-laws have treated me better than my own parents ever did. They are the best people and I love them very much, but on to the petty revenge. Around this time last year, my mother-in-law and father-in-law came to me and my husband told us their house was getting foreclosed on. The reasons for this are for a whole other post. We said of course they can move in, we wouldn't have it any other way. Well, my father-in-law was diagnosed with a fatal disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis around the same time last year. He was given 2 to 5 years, so again, there was no question as to them moving in, except when. Over time they finally decided to move in just before Thanksgiving in November. I found out my soon-to-be ex-husband was cheating on me in early September. I was then asked if his parents could still move in, and I said, of course. I'm not gonna punish them because he cannot keep it in his pants. They are completely on my side and will engage in polite conversation with him, but that's about it. Here I should add that yes, he still lives in the same house at the moment, because his name is on the deed for the moment, so we have an agreement for our divorce settlement, and he refuses to leave because he'll be homeless because his mistress does not even want him. Also, our daughter is autistic and we have to transition her slowly, otherwise risk a major meltdown that she might not recover from. A less than idyllic situation, but I don't mind. One thing that really set my mother-in-law off was one day, a Tuesday, my soon-to-be ex-husband asked his mom for $20. He told her that he needed to put gas in the car. We only have one vehicle between him and me, and from that Tuesday evening that he borrowed the money until that Thursday when he got paid, he did not take the car and the gas was almost on E the entire time. That Wednesday, he went out with his mistress all day. Well, that Thursday evening, I mentioned the gas situation to my mother-in-law, and that's when we figured out that he lied to her about needing money for gas just so he could go out with his mistress. One evening, my mother-in-law and I were trying to figure out something for dinner. My soon-to-be ex-husband is a very picky eater, so I've learned over the past 15 years to only make what he will eat. So while we were thinking of a meal to make, I mentioned that he would not eat it. My golden angel of a mother-in-law said, "I don't care. I am mad at him so he can fend for himself." Well, ever since then we try to come up with meals we know he won't eat just so he can fend for himself, knowing full well he will just starve or go out and get fast food. It is our small petty way of getting revenge on him. And honestly now, I really don't care enough about him to care about petty revenge anymore, but I love it for my mother-in-law. Oh, and by the way, since September my best revenge is that I've lost 60 pounds and I'm almost halfway to my goal weight. That is the best revenge. Have a wonderful day and stay petty, my fellow potatoes. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Nightmare neighbor ran me off the road inside our neighborhood. I crashed my car. I never expected that I would not only have to file a restraining order against someone, but also take them to court. However, the past year has surprised me, as it did most of us. A little backstory before we get to the juicy part of this whole ordeal. I live in a nice gated community and have enjoyed my career as a school principal. Many people in the community know me, and I would like to think that I have a wonderful relationship with my kids and their parents. I have never in my life been harassed or threatened until I met the neighbor across the street. She was not new to the community, but she had just moved houses. We lived in a smaller town, so mostly everyone knew each other through mutual friends and whatnot. As soon as the lady across the street moved in, her behavior became more and more erratic and aggressive after she found out I was the principal of the biggest school in town. At first I thought that it was something personal against me. I would leave for work in the morning and she would flip me her middle finger. On one of these occasions she even started yelling profanities at me when I began backing out of my driveway. She had never directly said these things to my face or been aggressive, but her actions spoke very loudly. On another occasion, the next door neighbor, who was a substitute teacher in the school district, had come over to chat with my husband and me. All three of us were sitting on our porch when we saw the lady across the street pacing up and down the sidewalk with her phone pointed towards us. It had appeared that she was videotaping us, and honestly, I was glad there was another witness to this behavior. I had not spoken to anyone about her aggressive and strange behavior because our community is mostly tight-knit and I did not want to be the one to cause any drama or animosity. However, with my other neighbor present, I learned that I was not the only one. This neighbor had some issues with her as well after the lady found out she was a substitute teacher. I had seen some kids in her house and playing in the yard several times, and I wondered if she had an issue with a teacher or school staff that led to this behavior that she seemed to have towards teachers, me or the school or the staff. There were many more instances of this weird behavior, such as her videotaping my daughter walking our dog, or in another instance, we were sitting inside our living room and we saw her walk her dog from across the street to do its business on our lawn. Her behavior was getting more and more weird, and I knew eventually we would have to do something. This was not okay, and while normally I would address the problem being direct and confront her, there was just something very off-putting about her. Well, turns out that I would have to do something sooner than later, because about a week later she purposely tried to hit me head on and caused me to crash my car, completely destroying it. And yes, you read that right. I was coming home from running errands on a weekend, and while I was turning onto my street, there was the crazy neighbor coming out of her driveway. However, she did not seem to be following the natural path of the road. As a matter of fact, she was heading towards me. As I realized what was happening, she speeded up and I ended up swerving my car out of instinct. This led to me crashing my car into a street pole on the sidewalk. I was terribly shaken up about the whole thing, and many neighbors came to see what all the commotion was about. By then she had speeded off and was of course nowhere to be found. What makes this whole ordeal even worse is that my son and daughter were playing in the front yard, which means they saw everything. The neighbors called the police officers while my husband tried to calm me down, while comforting our kids at the same time. The whole situation was absolutely chaos, and it was the last straw for me. Upon the police arriving, I had let them know about the previous instances of her behavior. This is not the first time that someone had called the police officers on her. As a matter of fact, I learned that various school staff and school district employees have had several issues with her already. One of them being a school bus driver who had reported her after she threatened to choke him in front of a school bus full of kids. I also learned that in another school she had been banned after causing a scene in front of teachers and staff, which led them to buckle up on security presence on the campus. I ended up filing a restraining order against her, which ended up giving me a major peace of mind. She was not allowed to contact me by any means, nor was she allowed to be 500 feet of my home. Which means that she had to move. Not only that, but she was also ordered not to come within 500 feet of my workplace, which was considered the entire school district. Although I never found out why she was so hostile and threatening towards school staff and employees, I was just damn glad she could not come near me or my family, and hopefully she would never be allowed to. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/I don't work here lady that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "They called security on me for helping someone." So I was browsing the aisles of a store when an elderly man approached me looking confused. He politely asked if I could help him find a specific item, but he could not remember the exact name. I did not mind helping, so I walked with him trying to figure out what he needed. Just as we finally found the right product, a store employee suddenly appeared with security. They told me that I needed to leave immediately because I was apparently interfering with store operations and disturbing customers. I tried to explain that I was just helping the man, but they would not listen, even when the elderly man himself insisted I had done nothing wrong. Well, rather than argue, I just left. Apparently, being kind is a security risk now. And well guys, the old saying is, no good deed goes unpunished, and I guess it is true once again. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.